every day that passes, hopefully they will feel better. The worst is over. They can start to recover now. Everything can settle down. Everything can find its own natural place. But, it is tough because sometimes parents don't. Their nervous system remains activated and the anxiety remains high.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Tracy Donegan. Today I'm speaking with Alex Heath, a clinical hypnotherapist, birth trauma specialist, and founder of the TBR College that provides training for professionals on birth trauma resolution. In this episode, we discuss the impact of birth trauma on women's health and the recent UK government's birth trauma report and some of the very surprising findings. And now I bring you Alex Heath.
Hi, everybody. You are very welcome to the next episode of the Tracy Donegan podcast. And today I am delighted to invite and meet with Alex Heath who's coming all the way from the UK today. Alex is a clinical hypnotherapist, a mom and occasional doula. We'll talk more about that later. And the director and founder of the TBR College of Perinatal and Emotional Health. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for generously sharing your time and expertise today, because we have a big topic to dip our toes into, because we don't have enough time in the day to cover everything that needs to be said about this particular topic. So I guess about 2 to 3 weeks, I get to set some context here. About 2 to 3 weeks ago, there was a report that was published in the UK, the first report, I guess, on women's experiences of birth trauma. So I saw it all over the media. I was excited to see, great, we're getting a spotlight on birth trauma. We need that spotlight widened quite a bit to include other countries that are just ignoring this or telling women it's not actually happening. So, Alex, tell us about what prompted this report, this inquiry, and what has come out of it. So I'll hand you the mic.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for the opportunity to come on your podcast. It's great to be here. It's always good to meet fellow birth nerds, activists, and business people. So I've wanted to meet with you for a long time. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to have the opportunity. And yeah, it's a very timely time to be talking because recently we have had the release of the APPG. It's like a cross-party report into birth trauma in the UK. And this was prompted by an MP's experience. So a woman who experienced her own birth trauma in the UK called for this cross-party committee to be formed to better understand why so many women, and in the UK the figure that we use a lot, in fact it's the figure that kind of comes out with most research studies into parents' experiences of birth, but 30% of parents describe their birth as traumatic. So that's quite a big number. Obviously not quite the same as those who might go on to experience trauma symptoms, but still it's a large enough number, and certainly a massive contributor to parents' mental ill health, postnatally. So it's a big topic. There was lots of excitement. Our leading charity in the UK, Birth Trauma Organisation UK, or the Birth Trauma Association UK, was heavily involved, as was Better Births, which are another sort of campaigning body. And they asked for any parent to submit their story of birth trauma, and they were inundated, obviously, with thousands of stories of parents, and some of those parents were invited to talk at some of their dates. And so the release of this report came, I think it probably was like 3 weeks ago now. So it doesn't seem that long ago, but time just evaporates. So for many of us working in this field, so I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, but my specialism is birth trauma. I train professionals in birth trauma. I've listened to thousands of parents over the years talk not just about birth trauma but other issues, and still have a practice that supports parents with these issues. And I know that for myself and for my colleagues, for my my fellow perinatal therapists and my fellow doulas and midwives, that it was just a huge letdown. The report failed to mention all of the issues that we hear day in, day out from parents. And as such, it was kind of a huge exercise in gaslighting what the professional perinatal community know and understand to be the main leading causes and drivers behind much of parents' experience of birth trauma. Things like, for example, obstetric violence, not mentioned at all in that report. Doesn't happen, apparently. Absent, completely absent. And I'm not sure how they could have received that many entries from parents and for that issue not to have come up and for it not to have been mentioned. There was plenty of talk about the reasons, lack of the poor retention of midwives, poor attrition of student midwives, low midwife morale. There was a lot of focus on midwives, lack of midwives, which obviously is a big issue. But to be honest, we've known about this issue for ages. There was no discussion about why. And I know somebody working within this space, that midwives are leaving this profession in this drove. Student attrition is so high because midwives themselves are burnt out by delivering services that are traumatizing to women. It hurts women to traumatize other women, and they're leaving. Students are learning one thing about physiological birth during their studies, and then they go on ward and they can't hack that because they're not seeing physiological birth. They're seeing intervention after intervention. We're seeing at some units artificial induction of labour at 39 weeks at 40%. 40% of women at that stage are being induced. No wonder we're seeing such high rates of birth trauma. Was that mentioned in the report? No, it was not. So there were lots of things that were glaringly absent from that report and that have been picked up by other charities and are being challenged. So the charity Birth Rights, which champions women's rights in birth, families' rights in birth, and often talks about obstetric violence. And it was the wonderful Elizabeth Prochaska who coined the phrase, "A woman is not a suitcase to be unpacked." One that I think we all need to bear in mind when we're talking about modern birthing, and they're looking into it because there was a line that lots of us glossed over, but the very astute Emma Ashworth of AIMS, which is a terrific organisation we have in the UK, picked out. It said, consent should always be sought from a mother, except in exceptional circumstances, which is actually illegal. And yet that was in the report. Even if life is at risk, consent is a legal requirement. There is no except. There's no exceptions to that consent rule. And the fact that they'd put the word except, well, actually, sometimes we don't need to get consent. If it's an emergency, we might be able to do away with that. Is complete nonsense. And so that particular part of the report is being challenged by Birth Rights legal team and by other charities. So it's caused a lot of upset, actually. It's caused a lot of, it's really re-triggered a lot of professionals who have left the profession because, for these very reasons. It was a totally missed opportunity to really nail the reasons, the very clear reasons, and the reasons that we can easily do something about. If we stop routinely inducing women at 39 weeks, then you know what? For one thing, it would free up a lot of midwifery time. The staffing numbers would be less of an issue if midwives' time wasn't taken up having to monitor and manage induction of labour when there's no medical need. There's no medical need at 39 weeks, So all of these things, huge missed opportunity, very upsetting for parents and professionals alike. And let's see where we go from here.
Lord. So a big exercise,
a lot.
because I know, and I appreciate your insights because, all I see is, what's in the media and what the media are saying. And of course, well, I don't know who's trusting the media these days. I mean, because I have so it was really just a huge exercise in disappointment, really, and really re-triggering and re-traumatizing so many of those women who actually did put pen to paper, because it is a lot for somebody who's been through a difficult experience to actually, you know, have the courage to sit down and write that email and say, this is what happened and this was not acceptable.
And it really took the focus off of the medicalization of birth, and it put it all onto midwives again. And there's been an undercurrent of really taking down midwifery, and I would also say with that, taking down physiological birth, that's been going on for some years in this country. It started with the reports into the Shrewsbury Trust, which really highlighted women midwives. They were, I think they kind of named them as like rogue, like there was this whole thing about they called it the cult of natural birth. I mean, what kind of bullshit is that? They said that in some of these trusts there was a cult of natural birth that led to dangerous practice. And so there's been this real sort of drive in the UK to demonise midwifery, to demonise true woman-centred midwifery. And this is what we're seeing. And this report, I felt, was really part of that. It kind of turned the spotlight onto midwives and saying, oh, yeah, look, they're burnt out. Yeah, we can't get them to stay. They're a bit lightweight, you know, and painted this picture that if only we could get midwives to be a bit nicer under pressure, or, you know, to listen more. It's like, they're doing the best they can in a shit system with shit rules. Yet we keep on saying, oh, what can we do about that? But then, of course, no one wants to work in it. It's shit. Like, we need to improve the system for the people working in it so it improves for the people using it. And if we're not joining up those very obvious dots, there's absolutely no hope for the maternity system in the UK.
Hey there, if you're enjoying this conversation and are passionate about evidence-based care in labour, the best way to support our work is to subscribe and share this episode with other amazing women in your life. Your support is so important to us and helps us reach more mothers with empowering content. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button and spread the love. Yeah, it's so interesting because, you know, the UK, like Ireland, it's like compared to where I am here in the US, like US it's, you know, the maternity baby business is big business and it is for profit. But when you look at, you know, I don't think there's not a huge amount of difference in whether someone has in cost, I mean, or for a consultant, what they earn on a vaginal birth compared to what they earn on a cesarean birth. But we're seeing the very same issues in Ireland and here in the US as well. But it's only, I guess, when you look at kind of smaller countries, when you can see like these dots are very easy to connect. So it's either they are just totally inept at joining these very clear dots, or there's a bigger agenda here where it's like, you know, because here in the US, you know, pharmaceuticals, you're like, it's all about keeping you sicker so that because we don't make money off healthy people. So keep you sick, keep you eating crap food. Don't worry about the exercise. That ultra processed food is nonsense. That's not causing obesity or any of those health challenges that everyone seems to be having, even though gym membership has increased with the level of obesity. But it's like we're seeing exactly the same happening in Ireland. So we have like the midwifery, like your you know, when you do your 4 years of, if you're a direct entry midwife in Ireland, you've got your 3 years and then you have your last year, which is your kind of, you know, your time on the ward. Really, you're a supervised student midwife for that term. But they used to, like, you used to have to get, I think it was, is it 60 births, I think it was, or 40 births or whatever it was, but it's dropped. You had to do your hands-on for, let's say it was 40 births. 40 births, so it had to be a vaginal birth, and various, you know, kind of, you know, criteria that went around that. But they've actually had to change the criteria because midwives are not seeing enough physiological birth, and just like the UK, induction rates are like, I'll raise your 40% inductions to in some units over 50% inductions for first-time mums. For no reason at all, other than
timeliness.
Actually, no, what it comes down to, because there was a study published, and it's like, talk about, saying these things out loud. There was a study that was published recently from the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin, which, anyone's watching knows that's one of my favorite places when it comes to research. Not. They do their own research and give themselves their own ethical approval. So it's, yeah. But they ran the Arrive trial from the US, which caused this tsunami of inductions for healthy, well women. But they decided they'd just test it out in Ireland, and it was during COVID. So it was alongside. They partnered with a pharmaceutical company to do home inductions. So come on in, we'll get your induction started with the Dilapan rods or whatever. We'll send you home. You won't be separated from your partner. But when they eventually published that study, they were recruiting teen moms in the unit. It was really, really the ethics really around it. I don't know how those authors how they got sleep at night. Yeah. But what was interesting about that was when they published the study said, oh yeah, it actually didn't really reduce the C-section rates, but it made bed management a lot easier for us.
Got to find those positives. Yeah.
That's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's not about that.
Now it's constant. Now we're just, induction it's a runaway train. And I was at the Mama conference a couple of weeks ago in Glasgow, and the brilliant Hannah Dallin presented about, birth and kind of where we're going, and everybody was asking the same question: what is going on with all of these inductions? Because it's a global phenomenon, like routine induction, barely term to get to kind of get things rolling. And what we're seeing come out of that then is more cesareans, more instrumental births, more trauma. Yeah, which of course, when the Irish, there was a study done about 2 years ago, the first study done on Irish birth trauma, and the rates were similar to what you're seeing in the UK. And all saying, some of the biggest drivers of this birth trauma, which of course you're seeing, but nobody seems to be connecting the dots, is induction of labor, disrespectful care, someone who is starting out in labor already having a history of depression or is depressed. So it's like we're all speaking the same language. We're all seeing what's happening globally.
No one's
but
listening.
Yet the decision makers are like, what's that over there? Oh, we're going to focus on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, let's frustrating. And I think it was what's from a sort of feminist perspective is what it really is kind of pitting women against women, really. Because the so-called maternity scandals that we've had over here, where we've had the Telford Trust and the Shrewsbury Trust, the Ockenden report, they've investigated failings at these hospitals where babies did die needlessly and where there was bad care. But the problem is that we're not able to see the finer details on those cases. So how that was presented to the public is that we've got these kind of like rogue midwives who have gone off grid with their own agenda for natural birth, which some of these cases are going decades back, and I think things have changed a lot in those times, but we still seem to be stuck with this narrative that somehow midwifery is at fault. And understandably, I completely get that, women using the service do feel done to by other women. But I keep on coming back to this idea. People say the system is broken, and actually it's not broken. The system's working really well for the people who made the system, and that's white men. And that's why women of colour do so badly, and women also do badly just generally, but women of colour do terrible 5 times worse than their white sisters, because it's a system that was created for the system, not for the people using the system. So it has the needs of the system ahead of anything else, which includes expediency, which includes cost, in this country, Tracy, to be honest, the thing that really drives decision is fear of litigation. And so it's an odd thing in the States. You're saying, well, they're more inclined to give a medicalized birth because there's more money in that. And we totally get the cause and effect there when you have that much more non-public healthcare system. When you have like an insured healthcare system, that's going to be what happens. But in this country, where healthcare is free and where you can still go to hospital and you know, hospitals will save your life when it needs to be saved, but the fear of litigation has just led them to be even more interventionist. And even more controlling of women's bodies and women's experience, and it still is money, but it's a different stick. It's still the same kind of stick, but it's a different stick that's driving that. You know, it's fear of litigation and fear of litigation, because the maternity litigation bill is the biggest for the NHS of any other type of medical litigation. Because the outcomes can be devastating.
Of course. And it's it's very same with kind of free medicine in Ireland, but we do have kind of a two-tier system, so you can buy health insurance as well. But it is litigation is huge, you know. So even though we have all of this research going back so many years about, how CTGs are not working, they are not doing what they thought they were going to do, but yet every woman that walks through the doors of an Irish maternity unit, the first thing she sees is a CTG. So it's and any pushback that you don't want the CTG, then what's pulled out is the dead baby card. You know, if we can't encourage you to follow the hospital birth plan, well, are you willing to take that risk, or better still, they turn to the partner. You know, are you okay with taking this risk on your baby's life? And that's women are hearing that every second day in our hospitals, and I'm guessing it's very similar now in the UK. And for the longest time, we thought, God, the UK has it going on. The UK, you got water births, and like, geez, it's trying to get a water birth in Ireland. Now it's getting better, but midwives have had to fight tooth and nail to get water births available. To get but you can, like, it's much easier in Ireland to get an epidural than a bath in an Irish maternity unit.
It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that before you use maternity services, before you're pregnant, you literally have no idea what you will need, and what support you would like, and for many people going into that system and that birthing process might assume that technology is a friend, and that medicine is a friend, and that, you know, we're lucky to have it, and we should be grateful for it because it's saving our babies' lives. You know, there's the dead baby card. So I feel like it's an easy coercion, it's an easy bully to have for first-time parents, because they are vulnerable. They literally have no idea how bad the medicine is, how bad that's going to feel. And how it has its own risks. And I think that's the problem. It's that, you know, we're saying, induction of labour will save your baby, but all of the risks that come to women, particularly, this is one thing that the report did bring up, but it didn't make the connection between induction and assisted delivery and obstetric anal sphincter injury. So WASI, obstetric anal sphincter injury, was really highlighted. So this was the other thing that the report did, Tracy, was that it sort of focused really on the physical element of birth trauma and much less on the mental and emotional impact, which, you know, obviously third and fourth degree tears will have risen. I can't remember the stat, like there is a huge increase, and it's definitely in line with assisted deliveries, you know, medicated labours where where women can't mobilise. You know, of course, if you're flat on your back for your entire labour, there's going to be some assistance probably required at that stage. Whether you want it or not, it's going to be suggested because of the timings around birthing stage and everything else. And so, of course, this is directly related to the increase in third and fourth degree tears, which has a lifelong implication for women's health, a lifelong implication. And this is what women who are pregnant are unaware of and unresearched on, but it's something that can affect your physical health for the rest of your life, you know?
Yeah, as you mentioned in your bio that you were, an occasional doula, and likewise, it is very difficult to walk that fine line when you're working with clients who are going into this system and trying to run the gauntlet, to give them enough information about the reality of maternity services, because like we have a situation here in the US where something like 80 to 85% of maternal deaths are preventable.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
I read it's the unsafest country in the developed world to give birth.
And yet we
that's
spend
an accolade,
more,
isn't it?
and we spend more than any other developed country, and where our outcomes are absolutely poor. But then helping parents understand that the majority of the care you're going to experience in a US hospital or in an Irish hospital is not evidence-based. Now, if you were going to an oncologist or a cardiologist, you would have an assumption that everything that I'm being advised to do, all of these different care options are based on, really robust, methodologically sound research that has been shown to benefit me and my baby, but we're not. That's not even part of the equation. It's like we're assuming, like I did, you go into the system and of course it's evidence-based. Of course, midwives and nurses are all going to be very nice and lovely and take good care of me. And it's just, they don't see what's going on behind closed doors really until they're in it. And then when they're in it, you're just trying to manage what you can to help them get through that place of birth as intact mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally as you can. And so I know I've been at this game for a while, as you have as well. Like I wonder how new doulas and new midwives are coping with when they're seeing this, because especially if you're let's just say you're a brand new doula and it's your first or second birth. And, when we go into this work, we have ideas about what we think birth will be like. And then we see, a mom being mistreated or just not getting what we'd consider to be safe care so, I mean, what would you say to a new doula who's either, how can they, I guess, recognize if a mom feels like there's something off there? Like how would a new doula know that, okay, this birth was okay, but mom is acting a bit strange? So like, what would you suggest?
Yeah, I think certainly as a doula, I've supported lots of women who in pregnancy are nervous. And, as a doula, most doulas will say to you, oh, give me a home birth any day of the week. That's where we're happiest. But only 2% of our births in the UK. It has risen actually, but very few people do give birth in their homes. So the majority of people are choosing a hospital birth, and the reasons for that might be because in their area there's no other choice. A lot of midwife-led units have been closed down. But it might also be personally because they feel safer in hospital. You have to give birth where you feel safest. And I think as a doula, our role is to have a really honest conversation about place of birth. First of all, like before any antenatal preparation, it's like, where are you going to feel best? And have really honest conversations about what you're going to experience in each of those different environments. And, in some places that might be a pointless conversation because you might only have a labour ward. In the UK, we did have a lot of birthing centres, and they've just been closed down one after one. We've got these huge trusts now that have all amalgamated these huge birthing centres. So we don't really have, in lots of places, choice. There's not always home birth teams available, and I'm sure it's the same in the States, and probably even more so in Ireland. But it's still worth having the conversation, just because it allows us to kind of talk about what to expect and some of the interventions that are offered and at different stages and what they are like, and just really, really encouraging parents to advocate for themselves and to say that, you know, that they can choose, and to talk honestly about the dead baby card that is so often played as a means of coercion, persuasion, as a tactic to shepherd parents into a particular intervention. So I feel like so much prevention, we could do a lot more prevention antenatally in our preparation. Of course, we don't want to scare the bejesus out of parents, but actually so many parents who are traumatized just say, oh, I wish I'd just known what to expect. I wish I'd known that this could have happened. You know, when we're talking about, I mean, I remember teaching antenatal classes a really long time ago now, but the top fear was tearing. And I was like tearing is not your, you know, so long as you probably will tear, but so long as you only tear a bit, that's not a problem. Is what you're worrying about is big tears. Like, how do you avoid those? How do you avoid like the really awful tears, and having conversations about that? So being more upfront about some of the things that do happen to women's bodies during labour, rather than kind of being all blue sky and kind of fluffy rabbits and unicorns, because even at home, even in a water pool, there's probably going to be some grisly parts, you know, and that's the reality of birth. And so I feel like we need to be more honest in our conversations in that way, so at least we can know where parents' anxieties are. We also sometimes become aware of our own anxieties, you know, and what we're able to hold as birth attendants and what we're not able to hold, and you know, that's perfectly okay as well. I mean, like, certainly I was just writing a piece earlier, Tracy, about, I think I was about 20 births in, where I was like, actually, I'm done now as a doula. That's me done. You know, and I still will occasionally, as you said, I would still occasionally doula, but it's not really a service that I advertise or promote. And yeah, that's definitely because I kind of know my limitations now. And so I think also as doulas, knowing your limitations, you know, and knowing where to kind of put yourself. I think if you're a doula and you've supported people, when you were describing that scenario to me, Tracy, it made me think of a woman that I supported quite early on in my doula career, who was a very anxious first-time mum, had a lot of fertility issues. And I think this is what we sometimes underestimate. You know, in pregnancy, a lot of parents are scared of taking ownership of their bodies and their pregnancy, because they're scared of doing the wrong thing, particularly if, you know, they've had recurrent miscarriage, difficulty getting pregnant in the first place. You know, those things do naturally leave you with a lot of anxiety and leave you a bit vulnerable to kind of having those interventions, because you just don't want to take a risk. Okay, so you're really vulnerable to somebody saying, well, this is a bit risky, because you're like, well, I won't take any chances because this pregnancy has been hard fought for, or you know, it might be their last chance with IVF or whatever, so of course they're going to bloody do what the doctor says. So I remember supporting quite a few clients. One really stands out in my mind, and she got to 42 weeks, and I had all of the conversations, all of the debriefings, everything, and she did still agree to go in to be induced. You know, she held out as long as she felt she could, but of course she's a first-time mum, and you know, when it's like 42 weeks pregnant, you're like, can I feel anything? Is, you know, what's happening in there? You know, you're so vulnerable, so vulnerable. You know, I would be exactly the same. And so this woman went in for the induction, but of course, everything goes from being an emergency, you must be induced in this second, to like being held in this sort of purgatory of an antenatal thing, waiting to be induced. So that takes sometimes 24 hours. Sometimes parents are sent back home again. They're thinking, you know, all of this goes on, and all of this is like you don't sleep, you don't eat properly the whole time. It leaves you in really bad condition for an augmented birth.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she went through all of the stages. She was in hospital for days on end before labour got kicking. Then all of the abnormality and the CTG. So not only was she induced, abnormality in the heart rate, probes attached to the head, Tracy, you know that one? I mean, is there, like, can you do any, like, I remember just looking at her face and she was like, is there anything else they can do to me? Like, and knowing that, yes, there was still more to come. But that is bad enough, you know, having a probe attached via your vagina to your baby's head to monitor its heart rate, because that's not going to distress your baby. Anyway, continued, ended up with assisted delivery in theatre. And that's the killer as a doula. You're not there, you don't get to go to theatre, you know, and that's also really hard for doulas. And she had agreed and consented to all of this, and I was there the whole time saying, you don't have to say yes to this, you know, you don't have to say yes to this, you know, you can say no, but totally feeling her reasons for agreeing and for consenting, because she was her back was against the wall, you know, what else could she do? And once you agree to one thing, then you have to agree to the next and the next and the next, and then you're just on this train that you've totally lost control of. You have no bodily autonomy, which is very, very frightening, and it's prolonged. It goes on for bloody days. I mean, we were in that hospital room for days on end. I found it traumatizing being there, and it wasn't happening to me, you know. So you can see how these things happen. And then, you know, antenatally visiting this woman 2 weeks, and she was a shell, Tracy. She was a shell, and she'd consented to everything, but she was a shell, and I knew she wasn't, you know, well or happy. Her baby had developed an infection. What's the infection that mums can pass to babies?
Oh, GBS.
Group
B strep.
Group B strep had passed. So the baby then ended up having a spell in NICU. She was unwell as well. So, you know, it's the worst start. Like a labour that lasted 3 days instead of however long it might have lasted, not even including the days running up to it that were spent in the antenatal ward, days afterwards on a recovery, you know, then discharged home, an absolute shell, just you know, absolutely. And it's so hard, because the thing is, time and time again, Tracy, and it doesn't matter who I've worked with, that every single woman is the same. They blame themselves. They blame themselves for not saying no. They blame themselves for not. But what choice did they have? You have no choice. You have no choice, really, do you?
Yeah. Even though, I mean, there is the illusion of choice, you know, that you can.
It is an illusion, and then you know, and the problem is, you know, midwives and obstetricians aren't seeing what I'm seeing. They're not seeing a shell of a woman, you know, and even the health visitor that comes is not seeing, you know, everything that she's been through and understanding that. So you sort of think, oh, well, yeah, of course. So I mean, you know, in those situations, and I've been in those situations, I just keep an extra eye on mum. I'll do extra visits, extra texts, WhatsApps, just to make sure, lots of reassurance that with every day that passes, hopefully they will feel better. The worst is over. They can start to recover now. Everything can settle down. Everything can find its own natural place. But, you know, it is tough, because sometimes parents don't. Their nervous system remains activated and the anxiety remains high. Trauma symptoms, you know, recurrent thoughts, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, anxiety and hypervigilance, they come to be a sort of permanent feature of that person's parenting. And that's hard. And that's definitely where referring and signposting on for trauma treatment is the right thing to do. But we only know if we keep an eye on parents after they've had a shit time. And that's only really happening if parents have got a maternity nurse, a postnatal doula, or a birth doula who's kind of going the extra mile, making sure that they're all right and checking in, because it's not happening from the NHS. We're not getting the 6-week checkup, you know, and if you are having it, it's focused on your baby. the health visitor's just ticking a box, making sure that you're not involved in any domestic violence and no one's going to die, so there's no, it really is left really for private practice, private practitioners, breastfeeding supporters, people in those sort of spheres really to pick up those pieces, because they're usually the ones that have the continuity, know about what's happened at birth, know the parent involved. But it's hard. You need love and care, good care to recover. And that's what we're lacking, sadly.
Yeah, and I think we talked briefly a couple of months ago on LinkedIn about the lack of compassion. And I think, again, as women, we're so bad. Like we just beat ourselves up just for fun, literally. It's like our favorite habit. How can I beat myself up today and make myself feel more miserable? And that idea of extending that compassion to ourselves that we are, giving to our baby, that we deserve our own kindness. So when you're coming out of this situation where, again, as you say, like when we blame ourselves, I mean, I was like, I joke about it. I was like the worst doula client because when I had my first little boy, because I had a fabulous doula and she tried to give me all the information. But when I was offered, like a couple of days after my due date, I was offered induction. I was like, why not? My obstetrician said it was okay. So I called my doula when I get home and I was like, yeah, we're having a baby tomorrow and I'm all excited. And she's like, oh, like, are you in labor? I'm like, no, we're going to be induced. And she asked me the question, do you want any information about what an induction is about, what happens? I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, I know.
So we all do it. I think a lot of us who come to this work have come to this work because, and it was only actually when I got involved in doula work a couple of months later that I even I just had this, light bulb moment of, it didn't have to be like that. Sorry, doula. I was in, I just wasn't thinking properly and I just trusted everybody else and didn't trust myself at all. So, but you have to find that space within yourself to be, look, we're human. We do human things and they're not always the cleverest things. But we have to just be able to accept that, we're humans, we're moms, we're just trying to do the best we can.
Yeah, and I think the mindfulness piece, like you're saying, Tracy, is, it is something that at some point in our journey as parents, we do well to embrace, because otherwise it is quite, without having that self-compassion, without having that ability to kind of step away from that harsh inner critic or the self-blame that often goes on and the guilt and the shame that often accompanies that. I think it's those kinds of feelings and that kind of self-talk together with perhaps, God knows what trauma symptoms that really leave parents quite vulnerable to depression and anxiety. And it's just such a lonely place, isn't it? It's just such a lonely place, from where things only get worse unless you have that kind of support that shines a light into those parts of ourselves that are there, but we just need to be shown them, don't we? We need to be shown that compassionate part. We need to be shown that kind of loving heart, that ability that we do all have. And I sort of feel it's in the igniting of that we kind of become, well, I feel personally for myself that I needed that to become a mother anyway. I didn't become a mother when I gave birth to my children. That's evolved over years. And that's my sort of thinking around mothering and nurturing and caring and compassion and all of those words associated with that it begins with ourselves in order for us to be able to give that to our children. And I feel like we do live in a world that is depleted of that love and of that compassion, and it's in all of us, but it sort of needs something to spark it, doesn't it? It needs like an ignition point.
Yes.
And I feel that that's also another reason why we probably are drawn to this world, is because that's what doulahood is. That's what midwifery, true midwifery is a sisterhood that is igniting sparks for love, compassion, of other women to be those things. And yeah, it's an important, important part of our becoming who we are as parents, I think.
Yeah, I wish I had kind of discovered mindfulness and especially compassion practices a million years ago. I mean, I just think not how different, not thinking back, wanting my life to be different, but how I would have grown as a woman and as a mother, I think, if I'd really tapped into those resources, before I was even a teenager. I think, oh God, the teen years could have been very different if I'd, hadn't, just that voice in my head was not as critical as, and I think what's fascinating me, look at the research, and I'm sure you're familiar with this as well, like the research around shame, and because there's so much shame around birth and breastfeeding, and that when our self-talk is that critical, it's the tone of our self-talk that's most harmful, not the words that we're saying to ourselves, but the tone. And it's our body reacts as if it's a physical injury, as if somebody has literally slapped us in the face.
It's a shrinking, isn't it? It's a retraction, it's a contraction, it's a shrinking. I totally hear you. It's an energetic response as well, isn't it, as a feeling, or it's a feeling that carries a big energetic response too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and keeps us quiet, so we don't talk about everything that's going on, because now we're at a point where we have literally normalized birth trauma. I mean, if you've ever heard, and I hate this line, and it came up with a friend of mine recently that's involved in birth trauma as well, that line of, and women say it to each other, when you're going in to have your baby, leave your dignity at the door. That for me is oh no,
that's I won't, thanks, I'll take it with me and keep it intact. That's an awful thing to say, isn't it? What a terrible start. I often think it's funny, as you're talking there, Tracy, it's making me think, why don't we discover those practices? And now as a parent, wanting to share those practices with my children, and of course your children don't want to hear any of it. Well, mine don't anyway. Please let me know if you have children who are interested in mindfulness.
You have to. It's like when you have toddlers and you're trying to sneak vegetables into them, and you put it, you fix it up somewhere in the plate. So we don't sit down and do a big, mindfulness meditation or anything. But if we're talking about something that, and I know it's on the youngest mind or whatever, and I'll say, okay, so they know how to fix this or how to deal with it. And one question is this thought helpful? So if my teenagers can just have that one little nugget of, is this thought helpful? They don't need to be practicing 10 hours of mindfulness a day. That alone will stop the hijacking of their nervous system in that moment. If they can, let's be curious about, it's probably not. And if it is helpful, great, continue on that path. But if it's not, then maybe we need to redirect our attention elsewhere. So for me, that's been really, really helpful. We're not all sitting on cushions meditating as a family. Someday we might, but it's not anytime soon.
No one's joined me on my meditation cushion or my meditation sofa that's just behind me there. One thing I heard the other day that I thought that really resonated with me, and I can't even remember who I heard it from, but it was the idea that actually, and I think this is really this is something that I come back to a lot with parenting and with my relationship with my children, is that thought that I need to be a certain way, or I need them to be a certain way for everything to be okay. And this thing I was reading the other day presented it in a slightly different way. They were saying, actually, you don't need everyone else to be happy. You don't need to worry that everybody else is happy. Like, I spend a lot of time thinking, are they okay? Are they, worrying about somebody else's worry? I do this a lot. And this idea that actually I just need to focus on me being happy. And when I'm kind of alive or alight with that love, then that's enough to set everybody else on fire. That idea of ignition point, that me being centered, grounded, happy, joyful, loving, compassionate is enough for I can trust in that. That's all I need to trust in. Yes. I don't need to worry about anybody else being okay. I just need to worry about my own stuff, my own life.
If you're gonna wait, because we do this thing of, and it's a natural kind of human tendency to, I'll be happy when, or I can relax when, instead of, okay, that might never happen. The stars may never align. That neighbor will still cut his grass at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. What am I going to do? I can lie here and just be miserable and have the worst Sunday ever, or I can change how I'm thinking about that. And it's like we have a saying in kind of the Gentle Birth program called, control the controllables. And it's of course, when you're going in to give birth, it's like, okay, I've controlled what I could. I've written birth preferences. I've chosen my birthplace very intentionally. I've hired a doula. I've done all the classes. And then there's a point of, I've done everything I can do to stack the odds. Now I have to just, let the cards fall where they may, and know that you've done enough. But it is this idea of, if I can control everything that's going on around there, then I'll be happy. And it's like, no, you just look after you, which seems selfish, but it's actually the most unselfish thing you can do.
The most important thing you can do is love on yourself, is to really love hard on yourself. I think particularly when you're a parent, and I feel like culturally we don't really have any spaces to discuss that. It's all about the baby and focus on the baby rather than, actually babies are really resilient and hardy. They don't need that much. They need cuddles and milk, and they're good, and regular bum changes. But actually, if parents had more mindfulness tools, if they had more self-compassion tools, and were able to bring themselves more love, then that would really benefit them and their relationship with their babies. And I wish it was included much more in antenatal education or birth preparation. Is that just self-love? Just really love yourself harder than you've ever loved yourself before.
Sometimes it's met with the idea of, well, it's all woo, or it's love on yourself. It's like, and I think what I found, and it's in some of the compassion research as well, that when people who find self-compassion difficult, it's, especially if you give them an exercise around, try to think of a time when somebody was kind to you. And some people don't have that memory. They do not have a memory of being a child, which I think so I can see where some people can just be, it's like a visceral reaction, because they have never experienced it. And I think so people talk about, compassion training. I was like, because so many people have not experienced it. It is absolutely a practice.
It is
that they can be so helpful.
And to begin with, we all need a bit of guidance and a bit of leadership with it. I'm so glad that you've mentioned that, because I think a lot of people do draw a blank. And I feel actually, Tracy, there's some things in my life where I think, well, actually, I didn't have that growing up, so I've got no reference point. But because of the training that we've both gone through, you kind of know where you're lacking in one thing, where you're lacking experience in one thing. I've got it in something else, so maybe I can bring my good experience with that over to here and imagine what it would be like. Or I love the other exercise that, just simply imagine your friend telling you the story of your life. What would you say to her as she'd experienced it? Probably wouldn't be thinking she's a loser, or that she's, you would probably be seeing a lot more. And I think that's the benefit of connection during this stage, of working with mentors, coaches, perinatal practitioners who are able to reflect things back in that way. It's quite, otherwise, parenting is quite an isolating time to you and your baby. They don't slap you on the back at the end of the day and say, good job, mum.
Maybe when they're 28 and moving into their own house. They're like, good job. Now we're out of here. But Alex, you mentioned their training. So will you tell me a little bit about what the kind of training you run? Do you run training for parents, for professionals, and where people can find you?
So I would say the majority of my workaday life, let's say about 80%, is training professionals. So I train midwives, doulas, antenatal teachers, counsellors, some psychotherapists, all in trauma-informed listening techniques to support parents who've experienced any kind of perinatal trauma. We actually talk a lot about birth trauma, but there's so many other kinds of perinatal trauma. So I provide training for both individuals who want to take that training, but I also work with different NHS trusts, training their midwives. And I also work with different charities such as Home Start, Mind, etc., training different peer supporters, other professionals in trauma-informed listening and trauma-safe exercises, basically. So that's the mainstay of my business. But I also do have a community interest company called the Birth Republic, which is still in its infancy, but that's really my one-to-one therapy site for parents who want to work directly with me. We're hoping to gain funding very soon, and we'll be able to offer access to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to access therapy services. So both of them have the initials TB. Everything, I've got 3 websites. They've all got the initials TBR. So I've got TBR College, which is my website for professionals seeking training. I've got the Birth Republic, which is my one-to-one site. And then I've also got Traumatic Birth Recovery, which is another website that is a resource hub, really, for parents who've experienced any kind of perinatal trauma. So as you can see, Tracy, I like a website.
You do. I will make sure I include all of the websites in the show notes so people can come find you. So what's next? So after this report, I mean, what has come out of it other than a lot of really pissed off women
people,
again?
Yeah, I think it's going to carry on rolling. I definitely watch the space to see what comes next, because I know that particular line is being legally challenged. So that will be quite interesting when their own report into birth trauma is being legally challenged. It's quite embarrassing. Because it has a line in it that says actually it's fine to do away with consent in emergencies, which it isn't. It's illegal, by the way, just for anyone out there who was wondering. It's never okay not to get consent, even in an emergency. So that will be interesting to see how that pans out. Throughout the summer, I'm running a series of workshops. I have a workshop at the end of the month on the 26th of June, specifically for birth attendants, actually. So if you're a birth doula or if you're a midwife who's attending births, you'll be really interested in this. It's all about how we can be with parents in the aftermath of trauma, how we can manage our own energy, which is really challenging when we are vicariously experiencing, when we're watching birth trauma. We're still, we can still be just as traumatized. How do we protect ourselves in those situations? But then how do we also support our clients in the aftermath? How do we support parents in the aftermath of trauma? There's a lot we can do when we understand the importance of language that is used, when understanding the concept of verbal first aid, and understanding the really important concepts of dissociation that commonly happens during birth trauma. How can we support parents to come back into their bodies safely in a trauma-informed way? So that workshop is free to attend, and it's happening on the 26th of June, which I believe is a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. So you can find the link for that probably on my Instagram page, which again is Traumatic Birth Recovery. So
I'll put it in the show notes, because I signed up for it myself this morning. Brilliant. So I'm looking forward to it.
Because if people can't make it, I probably will have a recording for it for a couple of weeks afterwards. So it's totally new webinar. Really looking forward to doing that. And that's in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you so much, Alex. This has been great. I'd love to have you back again, and I'm sure there's plenty more. This is one of these topics that could go on for
We could do like
a
a mindfulness topic, couldn't we? We could do like a mindfulness and compassion topic, and yeah,
there's
a
so
lot
much
there.
And I just back to that legal challenge of that line. So here's so we had I won't name names, but we had a senior midwife in one of the largest Irish hospitals suggest that if you've put on your birth preferences that you don't want an epidural, you'd rather not have an epidural, and you change your mind, you mightn't get one because you might not be in a sound mind to make that decision.
What? Yeah. I mean, you see this kind of power play all the time, don't you? In those environments, and you think, what, like, you know, why are you doing that? Yeah. It's not good. Not good at all.
Thank you, Alex. This has been really helpful, and I will, hope to see you at the end of June, and I will share all the information about your seminar, and I hope it will be helpful for lots of birth professionals out there who this is really, really needed. We need, and the fact that you're out doing this kind of training as well, trauma-informed listening, and for within the NHS, because we do have birth debriefings or birth reviews in some of the hospitals, but the feedback that I've gotten from some of the women is that it was an exercise in defensiveness, and there was no apology, there was no explanation, and so I think if we're going to do birth reflections and provide these services, we have to provide them in a trauma-informed way, in a way that's respectful and sensitive to the experiences that these women have had with their babies.
Absolutely.
Alex, thank you. We will talk again soon.
You're so welcome, Tracy. It's been wonderful. Thank you very much for having me. And it's been great to share ideas and talk with you today. I'd love to come back another time. But
I think we will absolutely
Tuesday.
Have to.
Yes,
we'll have to do this again. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Remember, empowerment begins with knowledge. If you enjoyed our time together and want more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So stay inspired, stay informed, and until next time, take care of yourself.